What happens when Donald Trump unexpectedly interrupts Barack Obama's live town hall, only to be silenced by one sentence the entire country can't stop replaying? The crowd didn't see it coming. It was supposed to be a calm, primetime town hall on a Tuesday evening in Phoenix, Arizona. Barack Obama sat under the bright studio lights, jacket unbuttoned, tie slightly loosened, relaxed yet composed. He was discussing the resilience of democracy when the moderator's earpiece suddenly crackled. The atmosphere shifted. "Mr. President," the moderator stammered, eyes fixed on the camera, "we've just been informed that President Trump is calling in." Gasps rippled through the audience. No one expected a sitting president to interrupt his predecessor's event, and certainly not live on national television. Behind the glass, producers scrambled. The moderator looked as if he'd just received an emergency alert. But Obama stayed calm, leaning back in his chair, one hand resting on the armrest and the other lightly touching his chin. He smiled faintly. "Put him through," Obama said in that steady, deliberate tone Americans remembered well. The screen above the stage flickered on. Trump's face appeared through a live feed, his voice booming across the hall. "Barack, I had to call in," Trump began. "I'm watching this and it's a disgrace. You're talking about democracy, but under your watch, jobs were disappearing everywhere. Under me, we had the best economy in history. Everyone knows it. Nobody's ever seen numbers like that." Murmurs filled the crowd. This wasn't just unexpected. It was history unfolding live. Obama didn't respond immediately. He glanced toward the audience, allowing the silence to linger before speaking as if in a private conversation. "Well," he said with a hint of humor, "looks like we've got company tonight." Laughter broke the tension for a brief moment. But everyone sensed what was coming. An unplanned confrontation that could go viral in seconds. Trump, feeling confident after his interruption, pressed harder. "People remember how bad it was before me. Manufacturing was dead. China was taking over. I fixed it. The numbers don't lie. Without me, this country would have fallen apart. And now you sit there pretending you did something good? You didn't. People know it, Barack." His words were loud, unrefined but forceful, the kind of rhetoric designed to dominate. He was still the president, after all. His name everywhere, his voice on every screen. Yet the audience's attention wasn't on Trump anymore. All eyes turned to Obama. Would he take the bait, respond with anger, or stay composed? Obama leaned forward, hands clasped, his gaze steady on the camera. When he spoke, his tone was calm, measured, the voice of someone who understood the value of timing. "Mr. President," Obama said, pausing deliberately, "I think the American people care less about who yells the loudest, and more about who actually tells them the truth." The room erupted in applause. The moderator shifted uneasily, relieved but aware of the tension rising again. Trump tried to jump back in, his voice climbing, but the dynamic had changed. Obama's composure, his tone, his presence, they carried more weight than volume ever could. Viewers could feel it. One man was raging. The other was unmoved. The moment no longer belonged to Trump. It belonged to Obama. But this was just the beginning. What happened next would turn a heated exchange into one of the most replayed live TV moments in modern politics. Shops across downtown D.C. looked calm, but inside one office, the mood was tense. No one there was waving flags or speaking in patriotic slogans. The people gathered were lawyers, crisis experts, and media strategists, assembled for one purpose: to contain the DNA leak. At the center sat Raymond Hull, Melania's most trusted advisor, joined by two attorneys from a firm known for managing high-level political crises behind closed doors. On the sleek conference table lay a folder containing the leaked DNA results. Everyone stared at it as if it were an explosive device. "We've got two options," one lawyer said firmly. "Discredit or distract. We can claim it's fabricated, link it to political rivals, maybe call it part of a smear campaign against the First Lady." "Or what?" Hull interrupted, sounding weary of partial measures. "Or," the lawyer continued, adjusting his tie, "we bury it under a bigger story, another controversy. In Washington, people forget quickly when you give them something else to chase." Hall rubbed his temple. He knew the strategy well. Distractions worked, but timing was crucial. If they acted too soon, it would seem staged. If they delayed, the leak could spread uncontrollably, and over everything loomed Melania herself, angry, hurt, and demanding a complete erasure of the scandal. Back at the White House, Charlotte Winslow brought troubling updates. She had spent hours contacting sources to trace the leak. Some believed it originated within the medical community. Others whispered it came from a staffer with access to private files. Whatever the source, one thing was clear. Someone wanted this information public, and they had been cautious. Melania paced the residence, phone pressed to her ear while Hall briefed her on the meeting. "They believe we can contain it," he said evenly, "but they'll need time and resources." "Time we don't have," Melania snapped. "By now, half of DC has heard. If Jasmine Crockett gets hold of this..." She stopped, biting back her words. The thought of the outspoken congresswoman using this against her made her chest tighten. Charlotte entered quietly, holding a notepad. "Ma'am, there's already chatter online, small accounts for now, but people are starting to ask questions." Melania's expression hardened. "Shut it down. How?" Charlotte asked softly. "Call the platforms, editors, anyone necessary. I don't care if it takes pressure or favors. No one repeats this." The room went silent. Even in Washington, where controlling narratives was routine, this demand was extreme. Silencing an entire city was like trying to hold back a flood with bare hands. Later that evening, Hall gathered the crisis team again. They discussed increasingly desperate options. Fake leaks to muddy the waters, quiet payments to reporters, pressure on social media platforms to flag the story as misinformation. Each plan carried serious risk. One advisor leaned forward, lowering his voice. "The real danger isn't the report, it's the reaction. If people see how hard the First Lady is trying to hide this, they'll assume the worst. We need to make her appear calm, composed, above it all. Not angry, not afraid." Hall exhaled slowly. "Easier said than done." Meanwhile, word of Melania's frustration was spreading faster than the rumor itself. Staffers whispered. Journalists listened. The phrase "explosive outburst" began circulating in private messages among reporters, each waiting for someone bold enough to publish it. In Dallas, Texas, reporter Lyle Morgan sat at his desk, staring at an email from a trusted contact. Attached was a scanned copy of what looked like the DNA report. He wasn't the only one who had it, but few were willing to verify it before publishing. He called a congressional aide he trusted. "Have you heard what's happening in the East Wing?" "She's panicking," the aide replied. "If you've got something, you should run it." Morgan leaned back, torn between caution and ambition. If he went forward, the story would explode nationwide. If he waited, someone else would beat him to it. While Morgan debated, Jasmine Crockett was already watching events closely from her Dallas office. Reading through forwarded emails, her sharp eyes narrowed. "This isn't just a family issue," she said calmly. "This is about transparency, about what they hide and why." Her aides exchanged glances. They knew that tone. Crockett had found her opening. But before she could act, Melania's team was already preparing a counter-narrative that would test how much control the First Lady truly had. Crockett wasn't known for subtlety. She built her reputation by speaking directly and fearlessly, saying what others avoided. So when news of Barron'S DNA leak reached her, she didn't hesitate. Her staff assembled in a small Dallas conference room, laptops open, coffee cups scattered, and a whiteboard covered in names and timelines. Jasmine stood at the front, hands on her hips, expression sharp. "All right," she said, her voice firm but steady. "Tell me what we know. No filler, just facts." Her aide, Marcus Bellamy, tall and quick-thinking, clicked to the first slide. The document first appeared in a secure email chain among medical personnel. Someone forwarded it, we don't know who, but it spread fast. At least 3 reporters have copies, but none have published. "Why not?" Jasmine asked. "They're afraid," Marcus replied. "If they print it, the First Lady's lawyers will strike hard. Easier to stay quiet." Jasmine smirked. "Afraid? That's not journalism, and that's protecting power." The room chuckled nervously. They knew that when Jasmine spoke like this, she was ready to move. Another aide, Lena Ortiz, added, We're also hearing Melania's been furious, yelling at staff, making threats. People are calling it her biggest meltdown since entering the White House. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Volatile. That's not a headline. It's a warning sign. If she's reacting like this, the leak hits deeper than they want anyone to realize. Jasmine leaned closer to the table, lowering her voice. If it's that personal, they'll do anything to hide it. Which means it's our duty to ensure it doesn't stay hidden. The team exchanged tense glances. They knew what came next. Jasmine Crockett wasn't one to stand still. She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. On the other end, a trusted journalist answered, his tone cautious. Congresswoman, I heard you've been digging around the DNA story. You heard right, Jasmine replied, pacing as she spoke. Tell me what you know, off the record. The journalist hesitated. I've seen the document. Haven't published it? Too risky. Risky for whom? Jasmine asked sharply. You, your paper, or the truth? Silence hung before he finally sighed. The First Lady's team is already circling. They'll destroy anyone who touches it. Jasmine's tone didn't waver. Then let them. I'm not easily intimidated. She ended the call and faced her team. Here's the plan, she said firmly. We don't touch Barron. That's off limits. This isn't about him, it's about her. About secrecy, denial, and the effort to protect an image while demanding silence from everyone else. Marcus nodded. So, a public statement? Not just a statement, Jasmine replied, her tone charged. We're setting the narrative. We'll show what happens when leaders hide behind power. The truth doesn't belong to politicians. It belongs to the people. That night, Jasmine drafted her remarks, short, pointed, impossible to dismiss. The next morning, outside her Dallas office, microphones surrounded her. She delivered her statement calmly and precisely. Secrecy is the currency of the powerful, she began. When information leaks or people speak out, it isn't chaos. It's democracy at work. And when those in authority rush to bury the truth, we must ask, what are they afraid of us discovering? Reporters leaned in, recording every word. She didn't mention Barron, nor Melania, but her message was unmistakable. Congresswoman Crockett, a journalist called out. Are you accusing the First Lady of a cover-up? Jasmine's eyes met his. If the truth makes someone uncomfortable, she said evenly, that's their problem, not the people's. Within hours, the clip went viral. Hashtags about secrecy and transparency trended across social media. News outlets replayed her statement repeatedly, debating whether she had gone too far or not far enough. Meanwhile, in the East Wing, Melania's team gathered urgently. Holt, her communications director, played the clip. His face was pale. She's careful, but she's targeting us. She's framing it as a moral issue. Melania's jaw tightened. Then we push back, harder. But Jasmine wasn't done talking. She was preparing to reveal evidence, proof strong enough to make silence impossible. At the Rayburn House office building, the tension was palpable. Cameras lined the hallways, reporters jostled for position, and whispers filled the air. Jasmine Crockett was about to testify before a subcommittee, but everyone knew this was no routine hearing. She entered the chamber with steady composure, papers in hand. No theatrics, just purpose. Every step drew attention. Across Washington, Melania's team watched from the White House. Holt leaned forward, anxiety etched across his face. If she goes straight at it, we're in trouble, he muttered. Melania sat rigid beside him. She'd been assured Jasmine wouldn't name Barron, but that didn't matter anymore. When Jasmine began speaking, the room stilled. She adjusted her microphone. America doesn't just run on laws, she said. It runs on trust. And when truth becomes optional for those in power, that trust erodes, day by day. Committee members shifted uneasily. Reporters leaned in. Jasmine continued, her voice sharpening. We've seen it before. Leaders demanding silence and loyalty when truth becomes inconvenient. But democracy collapses when secrecy becomes standard. The people deserve better. A congressman interrupted. Congresswoman Crockett, today's topic is transparency in government contracts. Exactly, Jasmine replied, meeting his eyes. Transparency. Whether it's contracts, classified files, or private reports hidden to protect political families. The pattern is the same. Cover it up. Silence dissent. Hope no one notices. Murmurs rippled across the room. She hadn't crossed the line, but everyone knew what she was implying. Cameras zoomed in as she unfolded a document. Not the DNA report itself, but a timeline of communications. Within 48 hours of the leak, Jasmine explained, tapping the page, calls were made to media outlets, editors were pressured, and online discussions were suppressed. If this report meant nothing, why work so hard to erase it? Gasps filled the room. The focus had shifted. It was no longer about Barron. It was about control. "Congresswoman," a reporter shouted, "are you accusing the First Lady of suppressing information?" "I'm saying this," Jasmine replied calmly. "Truth doesn't need bodyguards. If it stands on its own, let the public see it." At the White House, Melania's fist clenched. "She's exploiting this," she snapped. Holt tried to reason with her. "She's turning it into a transparency issue. If we attack, it'll look defensive." "Silence looks weak," Melania countered. Back at the hearing, Jasmine gave her closing remarks, voice soft but resolute. "Families should be off limits. But when secrecy becomes a weapon for power, we all lose. This isn't about one family, it's about every family that deserves honesty from its leaders." The room erupted in noise. Reporters fired questions. Members whispered urgently. Jasmine gathered her papers and left as calmly as she had arrived. Her message echoed long after she exited. She hadn't needed the DNA report. The reaction alone had become the story. By nightfall, her words dominated every network. "The truth doesn't need bodyguards" flashed across TV screens and social platforms alike. News anchors dissected every sentence. Analysts debated the fallout. At diners and living rooms across the country, Americans watched and talked. "She's right," one woman said, setting down her coffee. "If it's nothing, why the panic?" A man replied, "Because there's always something they're hiding." It wasn't about the report's validity anymore. It was about perception. And in politics, perception often matters more than fact. Social media only magnified the storm. Hashtags like Bonner Truth or Cover Up and R Crockett trended for days. The controversy exploded online overnight. TikTok creators quickly edited Jasmine's comments alongside old Trump family interviews, highlighting inconsistencies and hidden truths. Even Instagram joined in, spreading memes of Melania's rumored breakdown. Doctored photos showed broken vases and shattered glass across the White House. The atmosphere was tense. Holt and Charlotte called an emergency meeting in the communications office. Staff looked exhausted. Loosened ties, tired eyes glued to screens. Every attempt to contain the story seemed to worsen it. Holt rubbed his forehead as Jasmine's clip played on repeat. "She never even mentioned Barron," he muttered. Yet somehow she turned it into a firestorm. She made it sound like she's standing up for people who look like her, while we're the ones hiding behind curtains. Charlotte sighed. "We can't keep denying things without details. People already suspect we're covering something up. Why not just release the facts?" Melania entered quietly, her face unreadable. The room stiffened. She glanced at the screen. "This woman, Crockett, thinks she can use me," she said sharply. "She believes I'm weak. She doesn't know me." No one replied. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Jasmine's phone was blowing up. National networks, CNN, MSNBC, even Good Morning America, wanted her on air. Her staff filled the office, energized. Marcus smiled at a new poll. "Congresswoman, you're trending nationwide. Independents are calling you the voice of transparency." Approval just jumped 7 points overnight. Jasmine leaned back thoughtfully. "That's good, but we have to stay focused on principle, not gossip. If this turns into a personal issue about Barron, we lose credibility." Lena nodded. "So what's next? Another statement? A TV appearance?" "Not yet," Jasmine replied, tapping her pen. "Let them chase me. The longer they wait for a comment, the more control we keep. But when I speak again, it has to hit like a hammer across the country." Across America, people debated the issue in classrooms, offices, and cafes. Parents worried about their kids being pulled into politics. Workers complained about leaders twisting the truth. What most agreed on was that Jasmine had struck a nerve. Secrecy inside the White House breeds mistrust. Holt finally spoke to Melania. "Madam First Lady, if we attack, we prove her point. But if we stay silent, she controls the story. We need a third option. Melania's eyes narrowed. Then create one. Outside, as cameras rolled and social media churned, the chaos only grew. Jasmine had captured the nation's attention, but Melania wasn't retreating. She was preparing to respond, harder than anyone expected. Before Melania could act, Jasmine was already refining her message, ready for the next round. By the third day, Melania's silence had become the story. News tickers asked why she hadn't responded. Opinion writers speculated about her mindset. For someone known for restraint, every quiet hour looked like weakness. That morning in the East Wing, Melania's team gathered. Heavy curtains blocked the sunlight, adding to the tension. Holt stood at the table with his notes. Charlotte was surrounded by press clippings. Melania entered last, dressed in a pale suit, her face expressionless. "Tell me our plan," she said. Holt began carefully. "We push back, but strategically. Present you first as a mother, then as the First Lady. We frame Crockett as reckless, someone willing to drag families into politics for attention. If we make this about decency, we win," Charlotte added. "We've drafted a short statement, no direct mention of Crockett. Just a reminder that children should be off limits." Melania skimmed it, then set it aside. "Not enough," Holt hesitated. "If we go too hard, it could backfire. Crockett has public sympathy. A direct attack could look defensive." Melania leaned forward, voice steady. "I'm not hiding. I'm protecting. There's a difference. She makes me look desperate. I'll show her strength." The room fell silent. Holt knew when she spoke like that. There was no changing her mind. Later that day, a camera crew entered the White House quietly. It wasn't for a public event or holiday. It was for Melania's personal response. Sitting by a window, sunlight touching her face, she spoke directly to the camera. "I have always believed children must remain off limits," she said, her tone firm. "What I see now is shameful. People in power spreading rumors and lies about my family. My son deserves privacy, not spectacle. I will always protect him." The recording lasted under 2 minutes, but it hit hard. Networks replayed it endlessly. Commentators debated whether she appeared strong or defensive. Supporters praised her as a devoted mother. Critics argued she dodged the main issue. In Dallas, Jasmine's team watched the clip together. Marcus broke the silence. "She's leaning into the family angle. Smart move. Makes her seem untouchable." Jasmine folded her arms. "Untouchable until the truth surfaces again. Sympathy can't cover up what's hidden. That's where we keep the focus." The next morning, Melania's pushback gained momentum through friendly media outlets. The battle for public opinion had only begun.